Okay, well, let's do this meeting to order. Welcome, everyone. We'll call this meeting to order at 5:07 p.m. Welcome to the TBCC Board of Education monthly meeting. We will acknowledge our guests. Welcome, glad to have you. And move right into the consent agenda. Does everybody has a chance to review the agenda?
Yes.
Hi, Betsy. Thank you for joining us
Hi,
online.
Hi, guys. Yeah, I just want to say a couple of words. I'm so sorry I'm not there. I wanted to be there for Dr. Lee. Is Abby there?
Yes, she is.
Oh, hi, Abby. I'm so sorry. I just have a minor knee issue that I had to do today. It popped up sort of late yesterday. So I had to go to urgent care and all that terrible stuff. So anyway, that's why I'm home. And sorry I'm not there. And secondly, Mary, I heard about your husband having open heart surgery. So I'm glad to hear that he's doing well, you said.
Yep, he's doing great.
That's great. And then somebody's daughter got a Ford Foundation fellowship. Wow. Who was that?
That's one of our ASTBCC members who did that.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow, that's fantastic. Congratulations.
We all claim them. All of our daughters.
Okay. Yeah, that's thrilling. All right. Thank you, Betsy.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I'm finished. I'm happy to be here.
Okay. All right. I think we're expecting Senator Weber, and I'm not
Shannon.
sure about Shannon. I don't think we've heard from Shannon, so maybe she's on her way. Okay, so do we have any changes, suggestions, corrections to the agenda?
Well, we haven't heard the personnel report. Do we
Okay, yeah,
approve?
we'll ask Kylie for the personnel report, but before that, let's check in about, do we have any changes to the agenda or to the minutes?
I always have a little nit. I always find a little nit, and I just do that so you know that I do read the minutes.
I appreciate it.
The financial report from last month.
Oh, last month.
It says that President Gerald did the financial report when in fact it was Montessori.
Kevin helped us at that.
Montessori. Montessori.
Okay.
Anyway, sorry about the teacher's phone. That's just my little net.
Okay, thank you.
you.
And is Kylie capturing notes for us? Thank you so
Kylie
much.
is, yes,
Thank you.
My hats.
Yes, indeed. Okay, any other changes to the minutes? All right, hearing none, let's move into the personnel report.
Oh, don't we have?
Senator Suzanne is here. Suzanne Weber is here.
Welcome.
Hi,
Welcome.
Suzanne. All right, so the personnel report, the Dean of Instruction, we received about 20 applications for that. The panel just got together to review the applications and selected the top 3. And invitations have been extended for those. Full-time math faculty instructor, the panel is reviewing the applications. We received about 30 of them.
Wow.
So hopefully we have some good candidates in there. And so we should probably start scheduling interviews for those. And we'll probably do the first round on Zoom and then in person once we get the narrowed down. Full-time faculty education instructor, we're putting that on hold. And we're going to have a curriculum created probably by contract. So that when the curriculum is developed, then there'll be a full-time position to be able to bring somebody in. Vice President of Instruction, recruitment is pending. We extended an offer to the final candidate. And we just received word last week that she is withdrawn from the recruitment. So we're going to focus on the Dean of Instruction recruitment. And once we get that near the end, then we'll look at the recruitment for the Vice President of Instruction again. That's it.
Thank you. Any questions for Kylie? All right, hearing none, I will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Thank you. Motion passes. Okay, invitation for public comment. Available at the beginning of the meeting is an opportunity for the public to comment on any issue within the jurisdiction of the Tillamook Bay Community College Board of Education. Do we have anyone who'd like to make public comment tonight? Hearing none, we can move right into new business. And I'd like to introduce Abby Lee, and she's joining us today to give an OCCA update. And I think Paul's going to introduce.
Oh, great, thanks. Yeah, so Executive Director Abby Lee here from Oregon Community College Association. Abby's been Executive Director there, finishing her first year.
Yeah, since
Yeah.
July, almost.
Since
July will be a year.
July will be a year, so still in months, but double-digit months maybe almost.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's exciting. Prior to that, Abby has a lot of experience in community colleges in Oregon in particular. We were just chatting earlier. She spent 25 years at Treasure Valley Community College in a variety of different roles, initially as the public information officer and then left there as vice president of advancement college relations. Yeah, so a lot of different roles there. So I've been fortunate to work with Abby with OPC and have really enjoyed getting to know her, and she's a very strong advocate for our community colleges. So touring the colleges, yes, and introducing herself, learning a little bit more about each of them. So she comes here today to give us a little bit of an overview of some of the work that OCCA is engaged in, both at the state level, and then some of if there are any questions or whatever about the support that OCCA has given the colleges regarding some of the federal landscape challenges that we're having, and then to learn from us if there's anything anybody wants to share. So without further ado, Abby, take it away.
Thank you. So as President Gerald said, I love community colleges. It's been my life's work. I started at Treasure Valley in 1999, and so I was there for 25 years, and I was just so excited to tour your building because I know what it means to have a new building on campus, to have that plaza. It will change the shape of your community and your college, and so I'm just rooting for you and cheering. And so part of my role as executive director of OCCA is to get out to each of the colleges. I love all of our colleges, but I have such a soft spot for our rural and smaller colleges because that's really where I spent a lot of my time. And as Paul said, I started as public information officer. I was executive director of the foundation. You think about, I look at your staff with all the hats that you wear, and with Kylie's like, I made the copy and I'm doing the minutes, and I oversaw our nursing program at one point. I oversaw some of our CTE things. I wrote our Title III grant. So at smaller colleges, we get to do so many things, and we get to see our students, and we get to, we were in the lobby, and President Gerald came running across the lobby to give you a hug and celebrate your scholarship. And so but those are all our community colleges. And I especially have a heart for our community college board members. So I finished my PhD, as we do in academia, and I studied community college boards because in my experience, I was always just curious, why would someone do this? About these people, and it is different from a school district board or a higher education board. And so I just have such affinity and affection and respect for the work that you do, and it matters. And so I'll talk a little bit about what OCCA wants to be able to do to help support you in your roles. And but what I like to do is just really celebrate our team. I'm so fortunate. Again, I started on July 1st and really inherited or got to join a team of really experienced, smart, capable people. And so this is our team. And we have John Wyckoff, who is really kind of our face in the Capitol. Not kind of, he is our face in the Capitol. I think Senator Weber might agree that we see John a lot, and he's community colleges, and I tag along occasionally, but let him do a lot of that. And then Karen Smith is an attorney. She's been with OCCA. John's been with OCCA for 17 years. Karen's been with OCCA for 22 years. So she has seen it. If you have a question as a board member or a president, Karen has seen it, and she can answer those questions for you. She does a lot of our policy work and also our board policies. And then Dr. Elizabeth Cox Brand is our director of our Student Success Center, and we're really unique in Oregon that we get to have our Student Success Center as part of OCCA, and she does a lot of work on co-requisites and the kinds of things that when we need one person to convene all of our colleges, Elizabeth brings those expertise, particularly focused on student success and opportunities. And then Katie does our operations, and so she's the one that you'll see our staff interact at our colleges a lot with requests when we're saying, how is this going to impact your college? So our legislators in Salem, who we love, but sometimes they come up with big ideas, and those ideas have unintended consequences or costs back to our colleges. So we collect that data at OCCA, and then we share that back with legislators to say, this is a fantastic idea, but did you know this is what it's going to cost, or what the impact it's going to be for our colleges? And so Katie does that, and then Casey works with us on communications. So hopefully if you're not signed up, hopefully you will be by the end of tonight on our weekly digest that we do during legislative session and our newsletters and keeping you up to date. And then Laura is a former teacher, and she kind of is our hub that keeps us all organized. So anything good that's happening at OCCA, I will give them all credit. I'm just trying to manage things, but they're so smart and they really have a heart for community. So I wanted to offer to you that you've got a team in Salem and around the state, a couple of them are remote, that really work hard for you. So next slide. And those who are online who may not know what OCCA is, the Oregon Community College Association was started by the colleges as this advocacy groups. And so it was started in 1962 when many of our community colleges started. And we really work hard, and Paul will tell you sometimes it's easier than others, to represent the collective interests of 17 community colleges. So you look at that map and you think about where our colleges are located. You think about locally elected boards, different political structures, different community needs. And we're so fortunate to have a collegiality in Oregon, but we work to bring all those voices together in one voice, because again, I will harken back to our friends at the Capitol. My experience with legislators and legislatures is they do not like industry fights. They like one voice. And so when we can bring one voice where we have all agreed, and this is the thing that's going to help students in Oregon, that really makes us powerful. And that's another thing that we say at OCCA, that we are stronger together. And so it matters that all of our colleges are working together, and we're so fortunate that happens in Oregon. Next slide. And I just really wanted to point to our mission statement. This is the mission statement of OCCA. It has been our mission statement for many years. It is a mission statement that we are committed to, that we are holding strong on, and it is no different than our mission statements when community colleges were first formed in the early 60s. I like to say, there's a quote from Bond that says that our community colleges are the Ellis Island of higher education, and we always have been. And so this mission statement for OCCA, leading with racial equity, we advocate, communicate, and collaborate to strengthen community colleges for the benefit of Oregonians, particularly those historically underserved or systemically marginalized in higher education. And that, again, is what community colleges always have been. So we're really proud of that. Next slide. And so again, what does OCCA do? Well, our tagline this year is community colleges work for Oregon. And so as we present our message right now, we're kind of neck deep in the legislative session, and we are continuing to share that story about how our colleges work for Oregon and how our students work for Oregon. Next slide. And we primarily do that by working with our policymakers. We work with the governor's office. We spend a lot of time with legislature. We're in DC, working with our federal delegation, and really advocating for some of the things that they can only fix in Washington. And I'll tell you about one of those coming up. And then I work really closely as the executive director with the Higher Education Coordinating Commission. I spend a lot of time with Director Ben Cannon, who can help us on rules. So the legislature passes laws, but then tech sets those rules, and we've been working hard to get some of those rules changed. One that we are hopeful is going to come out next month So it's a little bit of a teaser that right now in Oregon, we have a disparity between the qualifications that a university instructor can, has to have in order to teach dual credit and what our community college faculty have to have. And our community college faculty have to have a master's degree in that subject. And that, again, is not parity. Our university folks just have to have a master's degree. So we're hopeful that that will be kind of reconciled, that OER from HEC is going to be withdrawn. And then that's going to create a lot more opportunities. And we believe at community colleges that we have those connections in our community. So those of you who work in instruction, hopefully that's going to ease up a few things. And our school districts have really asked us to do that. So I'm proud of that work that we've done this year to help move that along. We work with our labor groups, OEA and AFP, Oregon Business Council, and then of course, all of our other education partners. Next slide. And then just if you're familiar, you've been to our conferences, we, again, primarily work on legislative issues. We work really hard to try to bring together opportunities for board member development. And then again, are proud to support the Student Success Center. Next slide. And then again, I hope that you're signed up for our newsletter. I'll send that out after this. And we produced a number of publications that we think are helpful for our colleges and certainly for our message across the state. And then we have the board policy program service where we help you make sure that all of your policies are up to date and hopefully simplify that. Next slide. But I do want to just take a second. Again, you can tell I'm proud of our Student Success Center. Dr. Cox Brand does a great job. But it's interesting and exciting to have a person that our presidents support this position through strategic funds, as well as the member support for OCCA. And Elizabeth is really connected to best practices nationally. And so she can bring those to our presidents. And most recently, one of my goals was to kind of in the quiet time of the session, again, I'm looking at Senator Weber and she's like, when did the quiet time of the session start? But the different quiet time of the session, and we were able to present to House Higher Ed and Workforce yesterday about a half an hour, and we brought some partners from North Carolina, and Elizabeth talked about the reconnect programs that states have seen in order to get students coming back. You think about the investment that we have in students. We have 700,000 Oregonians who have some college but no credential. And so what would that mean if we could bring those back? And you think about your community college district and how exciting that if we could get them to come back. And sometimes it's debt, sometimes it's just time in life. Sometimes they left an institution for a reason that's not the right fit. We hook them up with another institution and get them finished. So there's some really exciting things that are happening nationally. And we can figure out what that looks like in Oregon. And so we're starting those conversations. Everything we're doing right now is starting for the 27-29 legislative session, starting now. So next slide. And then again, this is a recent photo. We were in Washington, D.C. meeting with our federal delegation. We're really fortunate in Oregon to have a lot of support for higher education. In our state as well as federally, but we went back for the National Legislative Summit with the ACCT, and it was great to visit with people. One of the issues that we're working on right now is Pell Grant, and that really is a bipartisan issue. We think there's some opportunities. There's also some concerns, and I'm trying to, there's conversations about taking that from 12 credits full-time to 15 credits, and so we're gathering information and sending those to our federal partners with ACCT and AACC, and they do a lot of national policy, but they rely on us to give them that information. So it's exciting times. It's also head spinning times, as you know. One of the other pieces that we've started, every Tuesday, we have a legislative call that is kind of an update of what's happening in Salem. And then we have a smaller group on Wednesdays with our presidents to give them updates on any of the Dear Colleague letters, things are happening in Washington, D.C. to kind of sort through what needs to be responded to and what might just need, we just need to be able to talk about. And that's been a really good addition. We did similar things during COVID where we just kind of got together and said, what are these impacts? And so OCCA really is a convener for those conversations. Next slide. And then just really quickly, we have so many bills that we're following, but I wanted to just highlight a few. Next slide. Our big one is House Bill 5525, and this is the Higher Education Coordinating Commission's big agency bill, and our budget is underneath that. And we are asking for 920 million. So we have stickers, we've got lots of things. And then we're hopeful. Can we just go back one more? Back, yeah, sorry. So the governor has put in, we have about, it was 854 million for the governor's recommended budget. Again, that's a big gap. We're asking for 920. We think that's what the current service level is relative to that. There's an important date that you might want to write down, and that is May 14th. We're going to get a revenue forecast for the state, and that's really going to help kind of identify the next steps for the Ways and Means Committee, how much money is going to be there. But we're hopeful the co-chair of Ways and Means, their framework includes an additional $5 million for the benefit navigators that I'll talk about in a minute. But if you're budgeting, as you're budgeting, we typically budget closer to that lower number and hoping that we're making that case. Our Ways and Means presentation, I was so proud of that presentation. I think I know our legislators have so much to balance, but your president came down and gave a smaller school perspective, along with Jessica Howard, president of Chemeketa Community College, and to be able to hear from our presidents and to have presidents who take the time to come and really advocate in person makes all the difference. We had students who came, and it was hard there were a couple times it was hard to keep a dry eye in that room because it is so telling what we do and the impact that we make in our state and for students' lives. So next slide. So we're still hopeful that we'll get closer to 9. And then the opportunity grant. So watching House Bill 5525, we know this makes a difference for students who need funds to come to college. So we're asking for more than what was there before, and that is a partnership with our higher education university partners also. Next slide. House Bill 5505, we just presented on this last Friday morning to Capital Construction Ways and Means Subcommittee. And we have 3 projects that have been submitted for approval. And as you know, you went through that process, and it really is, it's different from the university process. They submit their projects and then Tech does the scoring, and then you will hear them come in and kind of advocate around the presentation. And we have such a great process in Oregon that our presidents get together and they do it on a kind of a take turns and biggest need and kind of an equity framework. And so then we present that to HEC, and then HEC typically just presents that entire ask in exactly the way that we have presented it. And so you won't hear community colleges come and testify in favor of something that's outside of that process. And I have heard from many legislators that they really appreciate that. Again, we sorted it through, we agreed on it, and then we're bringing something that everybody can support. And again, it's really a collegial and fair process. We're sure this is going to happen. So next slide. And then this is the new one. And we just think about what might have been. So as you think about it, it's been $8 million. These are 11G, and 11G is a section in the Constitution, that Oregon Constitution, that says how public funds are used for lottery and the whole. We could spend more time on that, but just know that when we talk about 11G, these are funds that are provided to support capital construction of our community colleges. And we're asking for that cap to be raised to 14.25 million from 8 million. It's been 8 million since 2007. And so you think about that capacity, and you think about this community, what that would have meant to be able to get those matching dollars. Some of our smaller colleges couldn't match up to 14 0.25, some of them could. And so in the future, I was just telling your president, but next time, you're like, oh, Abby. So, and we think that actually the legislation is going to look at $15 million and then keeping up with CPI so that that could just be an ongoing opportunity for our community college. We're really excited about having that conversation. And again, because these are not general fund dollars, we're hopeful that no matter what the revenue forecast looks like, that this is a policy piece that could be continued. Next slide. Benefit navigator. So I grabbed a picture of your benefit navigator space. And this is really important, as you know, for our community colleges, not just, we know that our students show up as a whole person with lots of needs. And I can tell you, having worked in a smaller college, we were a little bit like, what is this I did? And should we be mandated to do this? And what does this mean? And I can't find a community college that is not committed to this is the best thing that's ever happened. Not only because our students have needs, but our faculty now get to teach their classes without having to figure out what happened when a student shows up in my class that has some of these needs. That needs food, that needs clothing, that had a domestic violence incident last night, and they can just say, hey, go meet with this person. And it has been such a scaffolding for our students and for our faculty. So we're really excited that the looks like this funding is back in and hopefully will be supported. And what's especially unique is that every college gets one employee. And so it doesn't go through the funding formula where some, Tillamook Bay would be like, what are we going to do with $10,000? And now we're guaranteed to have that person. And I hope that you will agree that it's really changed those opportunities. So next slide. So if you more than you want to know, but if you go to our website, we have an advocacy toolkit. So anytime you want to testify on a bill, we've got templates and lobbying tips, and we're always happy to help you in any way that you need. But all the things that I've talked about are on this website. We have one-click politics. So we have a couple of those on the 8th. So tomorrow. You can pop online and advocate for the benefit for the basic needs opportunities statewide, along with our university partners. That's a big push that we're doing tomorrow. And then next Tuesday, before the revenue forecast comes out, will be another big push for the 920 million. And so please contact your legislators. And we make it so easy. Just put in your name and your zip code, and it just clicks that message and fills their inbox, right, Senator? Sorry about that. Okay, next slide. And again, I just like to leave you this membership is important. It's important that all of our colleges are members of OCCA so that we can do the work for you in Salem. We do that with a collective voice. We provide education opportunities, and then we really are focused on championing student success along with you. And I had to throw in a picture of your president. We just had our All Oregon Academic Team luncheon, and it is so wonderful to be able to celebrate our outstanding students. And every college comes and they have students who are doing just amazing things with sometimes just almost insurmountable obstacles. And so to celebrate their success is just an added bonus of what we do. So that's the value. When you wonder, why are we participating in this? I hope that you never wonder that, and that you see this as an investment in your college as well as collectively the state. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Wow. Who knows how much you do?
Okay. Good answer. Thank you.
Agreed. I just learned a lot from this presentation, and thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for what you do.
You know what? Something you could do
Yes.
when you encourage people to flood email boxes, tell them to be a little more original rather than sending 300 or 400 of the same letter.
Thank you for that. That's a good.
If you get 300 or 400 of the same letter, you're not really going to pay attention to them. And I could say that as a rule.
Yes. I resemble that comment, so thank you for that. So anytime just changing the subject or saying Tillamook Bay, especially in the subject line, I would imagine that if Senator Weber gets something that comes from her district, those things go to the top of that list. So that's a really great reminder. Thank you.
You shared with us that you studied community college boards in your doctorate. Tell us more about that.
So again, a good advisor will say you should write a dissertation based on something that you're interested in. And having worked at a community college and seeing lots of different boards, different board styles, different board members, I really was curious as to why people run for community college boards. What's that initial motivation? And so I did a survey, and some of you may have participated in my survey a few years ago, and found that, not surprising, but community college board members, typically in Oregon, do not see themselves. There's an ambitious candidate who's someone who's like, I always wanted to run for office. This is my pipeline to higher office, or I was recruited and I see this as more of a community service. And so you can imagine what our board members typically see themselves as: more recruited. They see this more as community service, and less advocacy. Now that is changing. I will tell you, since I did my dissertation research, we are seeing more advocates come onto community college board, just like we're seeing that with K through 12. So some of that's changing, but it was a unique look at what are the motivations and how do they get onto boards? And typically they're recruited by other board members or by presidents. And so that's really important as we think about representative democracy, and we think about what makes a strong college and who should help build our colleges. And it really is incumbent upon our board members to think about those legacy planning. And it's not just people walking down the street thinking, hey, I want to be on that board. But we do see that on school boards. We see that in other elected offices like city councils and things like that.
That's interesting.
Yeah, thanks for asking.
You're welcome.
So Abby, have you seen many students on college boards, community college boards?
So we have not typically, because as you know, students are busy. There is kind of a push to get more of that voice. I would offer that our colleges do a lot to include our students and our student voices, and we're going to be looking for more ways to do that. There are a couple of positions, I think, had a couple around this day where we have younger folks that are running, but not necessarily students. So, yeah.
They can.
Because they're typically, they absolutely can, 18 and 17 and a half to actually fill out the candidate form. But we have really good boards, and you have a really good board.
Thank you.
I don't want to brag on you, but I will brag on you. You have a really good board that understands governance versus management. That's a really important. That's really important for accreditation. It's really important for the health of a board. So you can be really proud of that, and you have a really great president, and that connection of the board and the president makes for a strong, resilient, and sustainable college.
Thank you.
You're very lucky here.
Thank you. We feel fortunate. Board members, raise your hand if you were recruited.
Could I just mention that I love being the liaison to the OCCA because your staff, Abby, is so powerful and clever and helpful. It is just amazing. I try to send out the newsletter that they send out regularly to all of our board members. And I don't know, maybe some of the board members already get that, I'm not sure. And try to report back on what OCCA is doing as much as possible. But it's such a beautifully organized organization with very, very special people who are on your staff. That's all I wanted to say.
Thank you. Betsy's on our executive committee, and so she comes every month and provides input and support and feedback, and that's a big job. So in addition to serving on your board, she also serves on our board, and we are so appreciative of your service, Betsy. Thank you.
And she always reliably.
Yeah.
I've taken much more time than I meant to.
We enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thanks for being here with us. Thanks for driving to Tillamook, do a tour with us. It was very nice to spend this time with you.
Thank you.
Anything else for Abby? Okay. Well, let's move on to our discussion about the Higher Education Coordinating Commission visit.
It's interesting. Thank you. When I was listening to Abby speak, there's some couple themes running through our agenda, which is kind of nice that it pieced together. I mean, we can talk about some of the challenges that we see in the community college landscape, and then we can also talk about some of the opportunities and solutions that we have as we work our way down through this agenda. So that's kind of fun there. I'll just be brief. We were the last visit of Higher Education Coordinating Commission, HEC, had as their goal this past year or 18 months to visit all 7 Oregon public universities and all 17 community colleges. We were the last one. We had our visit with Vice Chair Greg Heyman on April 23rd. Chair Sandy Rowe was originally going to meet with us a month or so before that, but became ill, so we rescheduled. But anyhow, some of you may know Greg. Greg served as president of Clatsop Community College for quite a while, and then after that as president of Lynn Benton Community College. He's been very active on the community college landscape as a president and has been on the commission for a while, and will be the incoming chair, or is the incoming chair, will be chair next year. When Greg was here, he met with myself, he met with our leadership team, he met with faculty independently, he met with a couple board members. And we basically really just had a conversation about what are some of the challenges that we were facing, and then what are some of the possible ways that the HEC could maybe serve as a solution or a partner in navigating some of those challenges. We talked about the strategic plan for HEC. They have a new strategic plan. If you haven't seen that yet, take a look at it. It actually reads very much like what I would consider a community college strategic plan, as opposed to a university strategic plan. So they're really embracing the sort of understanding of the diverse nature of our students in the state and the unique needs that they have, and ways to approach those needs more equitably. Did mention that they recognize that in order to be effective at achieving that strategic plan, there needs to be some systems improvement at the state level to be able to realize some of those good things that are in there. We talked a lot about, and he also mentioned that this theme came up in all of their visits, about difference in governance between community colleges that are governed by a local board and universities which are not. And then talked a little bit about the need for greater coordination and leadership from HEC, recognizing that we have 24 public institutions that all operate independently of each other, and that creates a unique set of challenges in and of itself. And we need to try to rely on HEC to provide us some of that vision for that shared path forward, and some support as we move through that. Talked a little bit about the funding formula. It's not really a funding formula, it's a distribution formula. So as Dr. Lee mentioned, the Community College Support Fund is what funds the community colleges. And then there is a formula that the HEC uses to distribute that based upon a number of different factors. A good bit of it is FTE or enrollments that we have, but recognize that there is some need to look at it, and they're moving sort of towards a success model in funding, but it's only a small portion of the Community College Support Fund that will be distributed that way. But we did talk a little bit about while we're funded on full-time equivalent students, we have more bodies to serve per full-time equivalent student than most institutions have, and the challenges that poses for community colleges in particular. We talked about capital needs and so forth, but really I think the bottom line that came out of most of the conversations with HEC is the want for from the community colleges and probably more so from the community colleges for HEC to play a greater role in helping us. Enforce isn't probably the right word, but making sure that we do have some sort of accountability for some of the work that we're trying to get done, and the fact that we can't, we all function independently, so we need that collective voice and reason to help move us forward in some of this. So it'll be interesting to see. They'll put out some official documentation about themes they saw throughout their different visits, but I think it was pretty productive.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, let's move on to item C, which is nursing and allied health program presentation.
Thank you, Chairman Bell. It's my honor to introduce just a fabulous Dean of Nursing and Allied Health, Tiffany Slover, who's going to tell you about our nursing and allied health programs. I'll turn it over to Tiffany.
Where would you guys like to start?
Just wherever you're comfortable, but up
I don't
there.
know, there's all these different angles things going on. So hello, everybody. I'm sure many of you have seen my name, a lot of you know, but some of you don't. I'm Dr. Tiffany Slover, and I actually started here as an interim December of 2022. I can't believe it. It feels like forever, but it's also time has flown. And something that's really funny and kind of interesting when all the board members were like, we were all recruited. The Board of Nursing, I used to, well, I'm still friends with someone who was on the Board of Nursing. She has since moved on, but she calls me one day and she's like, hey, Tillamook Bay needs a dean. Are you interested in doing that? And I was like, and at the time I was a nursing instructor and still working on the floor as a nurse. I was like, I mean, I don't know what that job is, but I'll check into it. And so I had a nice long call with Dr. Gerald, and here I am. So it's kind of funny how there are some people that strive to move up a ladder in a certain way, and then a lot of us just kind of end up in these places and get kind of carried along. So
Can I make a comment about that? So,
yeah.
so as you all know, one of the, when I was hired here and came in, Ross Tomlin, the president, says, get us a nursing program. I was like, oh, okay. And so we worked on that, and we had some challenges with recruiting some director and leadership in there to move the work forward. I didn't have the credentials to move the work forward. I understand curriculum and can do it. But anyhow, as Tiffany mentioned, working with the State Board of Nursing, they connected the two of us together, and neither one of us, we had the passion to know we wanted to create something that was different and unique that would serve the community, but neither one of us really knew what the hell we were doing. But having said that, honestly, it's from things like that allow you to not be so mired in what status quo always was, right? And really think about, could we approach nursing education in a rural community college in a different way? And from Tiffany, we met also the Board of Nursing, Alex Tripp, who's online there, was our first faculty member we hired. And so it did come about as this sort of like organic kind of thing that was not very formulaic, but you know what? I wouldn't have had it any other way because it turned out to be really, really good. So I greatly appreciate working with Tiffany, and we've both grown a lot in this.
For sure,
this
yeah.
process.
And I will say our nursing program is, you know, we are regulated by a body. So there are certain things, of course, that are going to be similar with us and other schools, but our program is very different from a lot of other nursing programs. And not just because we're rural, but just because, I mean, when I went through nursing school a little over 10 years ago, it was a really bad experience for me. And I didn't want to be part of creating something like that. And so actually it was Dr. Tripp who had said when we were starting to figure out what we were going to do and what it was going to look like, she's like, it should be like going to summer camp. Like it's really hard and you're going to learn things, but you're going to meet people that you're going to be friends with and you're going to know for the rest of your life. And that's actually kind of our vision. We came in, you know, with cohort 1, they are in their last term right now and things are just flying by, but yeah, it's been a lot of fun. It's stressful sometimes, but it's really rewarding, and I'm really proud of what we've done so far. So we'll roll into this so I don't end up repeating myself too often, much as I'm just up here talking. So we're gonna talk a little bit about just a department overview. So you guys are probably kind of familiar with what we have available through Allied Health, but I'll kind of run you through our different programs, and there's a couple differences in like prerequisites or what people need to have before they can join a program. We'll talk about the specific program highlights. I wanted to touch a little bit on some things that I think are pretty neat about our student highlights. I've got a slide where I talk a little bit about our partnerships. Because it's rural and Tillamook is pretty small, we don't have a big long list of people we're working with because there just aren't as many facilities around here, but we have developed a lot of relationships with people in the community. And a little bit about challenges and opportunities as we're looking towards growing our programs and getting into our new health education building. And it's kind of our goals and what we're focusing on right now, and then the time at the end, if you guys have any questions, we can answer those. Next slide. All right, so as you guys are aware, Allied Health serves local and regional workforce needs. There is a shortage for not just nursing, but all types of healthcare workers. And a lot of people don't even understand what they need to do to get into a healthcare career. One thing that's really neat about healthcare, and we make sure to share this when we go to high schools or when we're just talking with people who are coming in and asking questions, is they're stackable. And so you can learn some skills and you can go to work and you can figure out what's out there and then kind of, move and change. And it's really uncommon for somebody to enter the healthcare field as a certain thing and do that with their whole career. And so it's really neat for healthcare, especially because a lot of other fields, like you go to school for something specific and you're kind of boxed in. And so for healthcare, we like to really let people know that you're not boxed in. Sometimes the most important thing to do is just get your foot in the door and start working somewhere where you can start seeing what other people do. So here we have our nursing program. We're starting a nurse assistant program next term. We have EMT currently, medical assistant and phlebotomy. And then we also have our advanced EMT that we're starting this next term. And then our faculty, depending on what program they're teaching in, they have to have different credentials. So all of our people that are working with us and teaching in our programs have the appropriate credentials and experience in their fields. Slide. All right, so starting out with our EMT, this is a program, it was here long before I came along. I think it's been here for quite some time. And it runs really well. They are currently not here on campus with us. They're up in Rockaway Fire Station. But I'm really excited that they're going to be with us when we move into the new health education building. So people in this program, they have to be 18 by the time they complete it. And I'll just say it now that this pretty much applies for all of our programs. Our students have to go through background checks and they have to turn in immunizations depending on what governing body is kind of over that part of healthcare. So that's pretty standard for all of our healthcare programs. It's a 2-term program. They spend time in the class, skills lab, and then they also go out and do some clinical training on site. After they complete our program, they are able to sit for an exam and then become an Oregon EMT that is licensed. In the past, we've had a little difficult time getting students when they complete to then take the next step when they're not in our class anymore. You don't have as much input as to what's going on with taking that next step to go take their exam. So when we were looking at our statistics, it wasn't necessarily showing effort because we'd have people complete, but not everybody would test. And so we've done some work on that with this. We have a new kind of batch going right now where we're making that more integrated. They can take the test through our facility, trying to help people complete that. A lot of times when people get on programs, they're like, oh my gosh, that was so much, I'm going to take a break. And then they just don't take that last step to finish up. So we're really working to try to help close that gap for students. And once they're finished with this program, they can work on the ambulance, they can go to fire departments, they spend time in hospital ERs, and then they're also eligible to move further on up that career pathway they should choose. And we have, it's kind of like the next big thing on our plate right now. We have people coming to do a survey for accreditation for us on the 20th of this month. So we're kind of preparing for that. It's been a really long time since the survey was done pre-COVID. And of course, everything has kind of fallen apart all over the place regulation wise. And so we'll have a lot of work to do. We've already started doing a lot of that work as we went through the survey and realized what things needed to be addressed. So a lot of stuff before any of us were here on this campus, but we're working really hard to be where we need to be for this program. Dr. Tripp, who's on the call with us, she is the director of our EMT program, and she's done the lion's share of the work on that. And then Katie, who's also in the office with us, like blue over there, is also doing a lot of the work. All right, next slide. So this is our advanced EMT, and that is starting this summer. We realized there was a need for people to be able to continue on with their EMT career progression, and we needed it locally, so they didn't have to leave after they started working here. So a lot of work was put into getting this put together, kind of at the same time that we were getting ready for our survey. And so we're excited we got the approval. It's going to be 1 term with classroom, lab, and clinical training, so similar to the basic. And that is going to be very accelerated, so there's a possibility if it's too accelerated, we might have to break that up into 2 terms. We're going to try to keep it 1 term if we can. And once they finish that, then they can sit for their advanced EMT exam, and then also get the corresponding license for that. And that cohort's a little bit smaller, so we are only taking 15 students. And like I said, that starts this summer. Next. Another longstanding program here is our medical assistant program. This was in place before I came along. And students for this, they have to be 18 by program completion as well. And this is another 2-term program. I think it's really great that our school has so many 2-term programs just to help people get working. And when they finish with this, they also can take a certification exam. It's the NHA exam. And they too spend time in class with the instructor and then with skills lab, and then they do some hands-on clinical experience as well. MAs are kind of an interesting profession. They don't have a governing body like nurses do and a lot of other healthcare professionals. They fall underneath the direction of like their MDs that they're working for. So they can work all sorts of places. So they're in the clinics, in doctors' offices, doing outpatient stuff. So they're kind of a mix between like a nurse and a CNA and like an LPN. They do all sorts of stuff. They draw blood. So they really are kind of a jack of all trades, which is kind of interesting to see some of the things they do that I don't even do as a nurse. But so we have 15 students in there, and that program starts each fall. Next slide. And then nursing, we talk a lot about nursing, I think, because it's kind of the big shiny new thing. And I'm a nurse, so I can speak to that more readily than anything else. But students for this have to be 18 by the time they complete the program. It's a 2-year program. We initially were doing all 6 terms together, so they went through the summer. And that was driven mostly just when we got approved for the program to start. We didn't want to wait a whole other year. So we weren't able to start until winter instead of starting in fall like almost all programs do. So we were like, okay, we'll start in winter and we'll go through the summer. And maybe like people won't like having to go to school during the summer, but they also didn't have a term off and have a gap and have to come back as 2nd-year students after having all summer off. And while that still probably seems like it's a good thing, it caused a lot of other problems like the financial aid and scholarships and whatnot. So, and I think students really do want their summer most of the time. So we're actually going to be switching with cohort 3. They are coming in this fall instead of starting in winter like we had to do with our first 2 cohorts. So we will be on their traditional schedule like most nursing programs come with cohort 3. So completion of our program that allows students to sit for their NCLEX RN and apply for licensure here in Oregon. And again, they also do in-person skills lab and lecture, and then they get to go out and do clinicals in the community as well. And nurses can work in all sorts of places. We have 16 students, 16 seats that we start each cohort with, and we are now going to be starting each fall. And we have a big program survey coming up November 4th and 5th. So it's going to be kind of our next big, huge to-do. Currently, we're operating under initial approval. So after the board comes out and sees what we've done and looks at our NCLEX pass rates, because that's part of the reason we have to wait, then we will be granted final approval. And then we'll be reworking a lot of our curriculum, because when you have to say what you're ready for the program, you don't always get it right. So it's working, but we found a lot of areas for improvements. We're going to be working on that once we get that final approval. Next slide. Another new thing, kind of, that we have starting this summer is nurse assistants. We, in the past, I think ran 1 cohort through prior to me coming to the college. And that got put on hiatus. And it went long enough that we had to reapply, which was fine because we had other things going on. So once we finally got the nursing program settled and some other things that we were working on wrapped up, we did reapply for the nurse assistant program through the Board of Nursing and got approval to do that. So we are starting that this summer. The thing that's really neat about this is students only have to be 16 at time of admission. So all of our other programs, they pretty much have to be 18 by the time they graduate. A lot of it has to do with licensing and credentialing. But what we're seeing is a lot of students in high school wanting to take this program in the summer between terms or between school years. And so they are able to gain some skills, maybe go find a job to help in their time off in the summer. So we're not quite sure. Time will tell how much popularity there is for the program, but we're thinking we are going to probably need to expand seats in the future, but we are starting with one class in the summer, one class in the spring, capped at 10 students. For us to make those cohorts bigger, we'd have to bring on another instructor because we can only have like a 1-to-10 ratio with student and instructors. So we'll see how that goes. But we're really excited for this to start back up again. We realized we wanted to start requiring our RN students to have a CNA before they came to our program, so we didn't have to spend a bunch of the first term teaching nursing assistant skills. And students started panicking, so there really wasn't anywhere here local where they could get their NA. So we're like, oh wow, I guess that really is a need, and we need to revamp this program and get it up and going again. And I recently heard, we were talking with one of our clinical partners. There was one facility that was offering it, that was getting people even coming from Portland to do their NA. So the people they're willing to drive. So hopefully that's a really good service we can give the community and help people be able to get right into a skill and, you know, kind of starting into that career pathway. Yeah, next slide, please. Another longstanding program, we have a phlebotomy. So this is very focused on a skill. A lot of our other programs up until this one, students are learning a variety of skills. Phlebotomy is a lot more focused in on a particular skill, but there's still a lot of assessments and stuff that go with it. Again, have to be 18 by program completion. This is another 2-term program we have. So they spend a lot of time in class the first term, and the second term is primarily the clinicals and getting their hours. I believe they have to get 100 successful sticks before they're finished with the program, which is a lot. And Jody Richardson is our instructor. She's also at the hospital at Adventist. She just got the Volunteer of the Year award, like
Search and rescue.
yeah, it's really exciting. She's I think she's cloned herself. I don't know if she does everything she does. And she also teaches, it's not a program, but she teaches BLS and first aid for us here as well at the college. So this is a little bit smaller class. We did cut it back. It used to have a higher cap on it. So it used to be offered once a year. And I believe, was she capping it at 20 before? So we cut back to 12 students per class and started offering it twice a year. So it was a better experience for the students. And we do that in the fall and the spring. And this is our first time that we're going to be offering it 2 times. We'll see how that goes. Next slide. All right, so we have a couple upcoming deadlines for applications. If anybody knows anyone who's thinking about coming into one of our programs. The first one's coming up. We've got advanced EMT and nursing assistant are both May 16th. Next up, we have nursing for our 3rd cohort, June 30th. And then EMT basic, medical assistant, phlebotomy are all September 8th. Next. Sorry, all of our partners, there's so many of them, it's kind of small text, but we work with a lot of different places. So obviously Adventist, but they have hospitals and clinics that just give us a lot of placement. We're working with local schools. The Oregon Youth Authority were able to place one of our first cohort students there for her final practicum. It took a lot to get set up with a state agency for us to have a student go in there, but she actually met with Dr. Tripp today, and it was exciting to hear her talk about that experience because it's not a typical nurse experience. but the student comes from like a mental health technician background. So for us to be able to find a placement for her, if she doesn't want to be a med-surg nurse, she probably wants to stay in psychiatrics or corrections. So we really need to get that partnership with OIA. We also work with Tillamook County Health Department. We recently partnered with them a couple weeks ago. They came and had a table down in like the student area for STI awareness, and all the staff participated, and then booths and the students in our second nursing cohort created a bunch of projects for the county to be able to then take and use for education and presentation. So that was a really neat collaboration we got to do, and I was very impressed. The students had so much fun with the projects instead of, thinking that it was a difficult topic, which decreasing stigma was one of the big aims for that project. So it really seemed to make a lot of progress there. We also have a partnership with North Lincoln City Hospital, PathWest Ambulance, and Nehalem Valley Care Center. We have local clinic rotations and externships that foster job placement. A lot of our students, as they're finishing up final practicums and their clinical experiences, get job offers. So even though we tell students, your final practicum is not an interview for a job, you always want to put your best foot forward, because there's a chance that you could get a job there, or they may know someplace and be able to recommend you. So we do make a lot of connections that way for students. And then we also have our health advisory committee. They meet quarterly and they inform our allied health department on decisions, including curriculum and programming. And I think we have one of those probably coming up in June. Yeah, so that's our chance to talk with our local partners and see if they have identified a need that maybe the college can help with. So it's kind of nice to be able to keep a pulse on what's going on in the community. Next slide. All right, so a couple student highlights. We tried to get quotes from students, but they didn't want to share their words of wisdom with us.
Actually, Tiffany, I have, well,
Yeah, the one from the all staff.
did you?
I heard it, but not
Can I
everyone
read
got to hear it. Yes, please.
Yeah. So we collected data from, or we asked, as a part of the survey, we asked students, how staff and faculty helped them to feel a sense of belonging. And this like echoes just exactly the environment that you and Alex want to create. One of the nursing students said, the professors in the nursing program are constantly encouraging us to be ourselves, discuss, embrace, and learn from our strengths as well as our weaknesses. We're all in this classroom together for a reason, to work towards a goal as a team. The community in the nursing program is a bond like no other.
Nice.
Nice. Come on.
I was pretty excited when I heard that on the meeting. I said, yeah.
Right? That's a good one.
Yeah. And I, as a student, probably didn't take the time to write down kind of words for my instructors, and now I wish, it feels good to hear them. I wish I would have been a better student about that, but yeah. And then I told Katie, I was like, if we don't get like representatives from all the programs, like, don't worry about, gathering quotes from everyone, because I don't want it to be lopsided. Because all of our instructors are incredible and really advocate and take care of our students. So I'm sure their students love them, even though class is hard sometimes. So we have 15 students who have completed multiple programs or have applied for a second pathway program here at the college. And 7 of our nursing students have completed previous programs at TBCC. So they were able to take one of those 2-term courses, kind of get their foot in the door, and then they've decided, I'm going to keep working in this for now, but that's not the trajectory I want to be on. Which helps them make informed decisions, which is really important. So a lot of times when you get a degree and work towards higher education, you don't always have all the information you need to know if that's what you want to be doing in 10 years. And a lot of people change their mind. So that is a really neat thing about our healthcare pathways, that we allow students to kind of test the waters and see what's out there and then make decisions as they go. Next slide. So a couple challenges we're coming up on or have been dealing with. It is very difficult to recruit faculty from rural areas. So we are very fortunate that our phlebotomy and EMS instructor, they're both pretty local. But our whole entire nursing program, none of us live here in Tillamook. I live here part-time now in Garibaldi, but we've had to find people to come in from other areas. And same for our NA program. And I think our MA instructor, she's only here part of the week too. So it is one of our big challenges to find people locally. And especially, for adjunct positions when if they don't make the same as full-time faculty to drive to us. So it's a unique challenge we have. Sometimes that means we offer classes hybrid where students can Zoom in. We just still have a lot of presence from all of our instructors in person, even if they're not local. When we move across the street, or not the street, I guess, the plaza to our new building, we'll be doing some scaling up. So this faculty recruitment is going to be something we're going to continue to have to be creative with. And then we're bringing on our fancy simulation labs. We're going to have to find people to help us run those labs and be lab assistants and whatnot. So that's something we're already trying to be creative and think about how we're going to get those positions filled when the time comes and we need those positions. Opportunities we've had that have also been challenging that have led to some really great things. Eileen is on the Zoom still, I think. Her and Katie have worked really hard on our dual credit programs and our offerings and trying to really make that a lot more robust than it is. And so we're starting to hopefully, I saw Eileen leave again. Oh, thumbs up? She doesn't want to talk? Okay. I noticed from
I don't need to talk, but
Hey,
if you want to talk.
Go for it.
No, I think that all three high schools actually have in Tillamook County have healthcare as one of their Perkins programs, but we really only have one strong healthcare dual credit program through Tillamook. So these opportunities that we're getting for grants and other ways to connect our high school students has been really helpful to build. We've got at least one EMT student, I think, that is from Tillamook High School that comes over outside of class, right? I think so. Okay, Katie would know better, right? And yeah, I think there's a lot of opportunity though as we get the new building to be able to bring students over or to do distance training. We put in a grant to a request for USDA for some kind of hybrid setup for all three of our Tillamook high schools to be able to have healthcare courses that we would remote with and then build in some lab pieces. So, yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Eileen. And then we are starting to do some work and consideration and a little bit more research on a limited X-ray technician certificate. Just in chatting with Katie today, I found out this was an ask from a dentist in 2019. So we actually are going to be meeting with, I believe it's their director of imaging on Monday to make sure that one, this is still a need in the community because 2019 feels like a lifetime ago. And start to do work on that. And she's really going to be able to help us understand what that field looks like. And then we can start making sure we have the right person in place for that program. So I'm sure they have to have special credentialing. And when Katie was on the phone talking about to OHA about that limited X-ray tech program, they had mentioned that there is also a need for DEXA scan, which is bone density certificate. So that's something we're probably going to tie in with that limited X-ray tech, just as another little specialty. It's really nice when leaders like OHA can be like, oh, and actually this is kind of a need too, because we didn't know. So that's really helpful. Dr. Tripp, because she's our director of EMS, is also going to be working on building a paramedic to RN bridge program. When we were working on our final approval or initial approval here at TBCC, the board mentioned that there was one other school at that time that was working on putting together a paramedic to RN bridge. And we thought, that'd be cool. Because, we have EMT and hopefully someday we'll have a paramedic program here too. And a lot of times people want to be a paramedic and they do that for however many years and they're on the ambulance and they realize they don't want to be on the ambulance for 50 years. So they're like, I could go to nursing school. So we might be able to bridge that for them, which would be great. And then yeah, the paramedic program. So Eileen says, oh, do you want me to read that or no?
She already.
Okay. All right, next slide. Oh, no, that was different. That was the nursing assistant program. For scholarships. We're also working with the foundation to find scholarship opportunities for summer nursing programs, for high school students. If Rhoda wants to speak to that. Eileen just.
Because high school students aren't eligible for traditional financial aid, and it's a 6-credit program, so it'll be about $1,200 to $1,500. And so we're trying to find resources to help them do that, since they're not eligible for traditional financial aid, so they could do that, go back to school for another year or two before they came here. So
Terrific. Yeah. All right, next slide. So our big goals that we're looking at for the future here for Allied Health. Growing enrollment and expanding program capacity as appropriate. We don't want our programs to get too big where it doesn't make sense. We want to strengthen our clinical partnerships, develop new partnerships, support diversity in our student body and faculty, and invest in technology and simulation. Number 5 is going to be a really fun, exciting thing once we get our new buildings. We can actually start working on some of that. I think we're having the best skills lab in the whole state, probably. And like, I mean that, I'm bragging a little bit, but we were very fortunate with title funds to be able to get some really, really neat equipment. We haven't even gotten a lot of it unboxed yet because it's waiting for the new building. Next slide. So in closing, our Allied Health programs are essential to our community health. And ongoing continued support from the college and the board is very appreciated. It helps us ensure program stability and growth. So thank you for your support and commitment to our students and our community. And everyone on the board is invited to the nursing program's first cohort pinning ceremony on June 11th at 5:30 p.m. in this very room. And I think probably you guys might have already gotten save the dates for that. If not, be on the lookout in your email box. And next. Any questions?
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
This
That was
was
a lot of talking.
Oh, no, it was outstanding, really. We've been curious, we've been excited, we've been it's so interested, and it was wonderful to have this presentation. So
Yeah.
thanks, great.
Hope it wasn't too much. I tried to keep it,
It was not too
Dr.
much.
Summer, before you go, that was a wonderful presentation. Would you be willing to share the short story about how you got into nursing? It's such a great workforce kind of story.
Oh, gosh. Okay, yeah, sure. It's actually really funny because when I was hearing, you guys were talking about how neat it was when students were coming and also getting testimony in support of different initiatives. I used to work at the Albany paper mill. And it wasn't actually what was really stinky on I-5. That was or Met and ATI, but the paper mill got blamed for it. But in 2007, they laid off a bunch of people from the paper mill, and I was part of like the most 40 recently new hired people, and so I was laid off. And prior to that, I had worked in construction, was a welder and an industrial painter. I was like, oh man, what am I gonna do? So something that was really, really neat. We had it was like a community response team that came out and met with us at the paper mill with resources. And one person that was on that team was somebody from the college, and they had a turning point and transitions class that basically was for anybody who was going through a big major life change, because that's when you need support. And a lot of times, like, you just can't even contemplate what's going on. And it was a free class at LB. I went to nursing school at LBCC. They don't have that class anymore, which is a big bummer. I went and spoke in advocating for that program not getting cut, but it did get cut. But it was a free class from LB that I was sitting there. We went all term, and at the very end, because I was going to go to school for engineering, so that's what I was going to do out of high school, and then just went to work construction instead. Someone said, "You'd be a really good nurse." Nobody in my family works in the healthcare field, and I was like, I don't know anything about healthcare. So I looked at the nursing program. That was way shorter schooling than going to OSU or whatnot for an engineering degree. And luckily I didn't, because they all got laid off too. But we had to have a nursing assistant to even apply. And so it was a really neat opportunity, since I had zero experience or idea what I was getting myself into. I got my nursing assistant. I went to work at the state hospital and figured out I really liked working in psychiatry. not as a psychiatrist, but in the field of psych. And went all through nursing school knowing I was never going to work in a medical hospital. So, and then things just kind of, sometimes you get caught up in like the natural progression of things and just kept going back to school. Part of it was I didn't want to pay my student loans. Part of it was like, I know I'll go back eventually, so I might as well just do it now. And I always have ended up being some kind of teacher or mentor in any kind of thing I've done. And so I thought I should get my doctorate so I could teach at a university if I want to do that someday. So I don't want to be a floor nurse forever. And then I just started teaching as adjunct because my friend at the board was one of my nursing instructors when I was in my initial program at LD. She was like, hey, I need someone to teach mental health. Will you come teach? And that's how I got into teaching. And so it just keeps rolling and keep getting recruited for different things. And here we are. Yeah.
That is a great story. Thank you.
Yeah.
We're so lucky to have you.
Well, thank you. It's
You're
nice
welcome.
to finally hear about the board all the time. It's nice to meet you guys and thank you for all of your support and meeting once a month to make sure we're all in check and all on we appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Board, anything else for Dr. Slover? Online?
I'm so excited for you to have your new building.
Oh,
I know,
true.
my office,
True.
office windows, you get to watch it all day. So, yeah, it's pretty exciting.
I do have one question, and I don't know if it's for you or for President Gerald. Last year, I think we were talking about the possibility of will community colleges be able to offer BS in nursing, a four-year degree in nursing? Is there any movement on that?
I've not been putting a lot of attention on the status of that initiative because we're not eligible yet, and I knew that my attention was needed here, making sure we could become eligible to be part of that. But the little bits and pieces I've caught, it still seems like that is a thing that's coming. Universities were really fighting it last, but I was really paying attention. But I would imagine, especially because we are rural, and we are really flexible at high flex and hybrid and whatnot, that would be probably a natural progression for our school to be able to look at as well.
Yeah, it was approved by the legislature and has moved forward. There are institutions that have put forward or are putting forward applications and requests to do that, to offer a BSN, and a group of schools are even doing it as a consortium.
Yeah. Yeah,
Great.
So
it's exciting times. And I actually, prior to being here, I was solely just an online instructor at a university. So if there's anything I actually had experience to be doing before I came here, it would be helping get that set up. So
Nice.
yeah,
Okay.
I like to give people options because nurses, once they get working, stop.
Thank you so
Yeah,
much.
thank you. No problem. All right, you guys have a great night.
You too.
Thank you.
Okay. We'll move on to rural guided pathways.
don't I get to work with cool people?
Yes.
Thanks, Katie. That's Katie Summer, also important piece of the puzzle there.
Yes, they don't have to make. See, I just wanted to. Oh, that's okay. Yeah, there you're fine.
Well, as I mentioned before, it's kind of nice to see a theme of things that are coming together. We talked about, some of the challenges we've had and whatever, and we talked about opportunities. And this is one that you've heard me talk a little bit about. And that's being part of the Rural Guided Pathways Project, which is a project that's in its second cohort. There were 16 colleges that joined on initially as part of this. They've gone through 2 years of this. They've NCII decided, National Center for Inquiry and Improvement, or Improvement and Inquiry, one or the other, sought additional funding to be able to have another cohort come through. Now, what I wanted to do is to be able to share with you, I think, some of the highlights of being part of this project and why I think in particular at Tillamook Bay Community College, this could be, if we can get all of our people swimming in the right direction here, that we certainly will be able to make a difference for our students.
PowerPoint, you said we take a break. Sorry.
Shame on them.
We'll show them, copy it and then coming back to work in this.
This presentation is probably dense with information. I'm going to summarize it and be superficial for some of it. I'll share it out with you all so you can have that at any rate. And I don't want to I get real excited about these things and I don't know why anybody wouldn't want to stay here till midnight with me talking about this, but I realize you may have other ideas. I think the really important thing is to recognize is that when I come up here or Dean Slover comes up here and we give a presentation, you're seeing some of the results of labors of love from a large number of people that have helped contribute to some of these things. We have had a group of individuals here at Tillamook Bay Community College, even before I started, that have been very invested in student success and looking for ways to improve the student experience, both from the standpoint of being able to engage and complete, but also have that done in a way that is fiscally responsible. And you know that that's something we've been very proud about at this institution. And I want to just talk about some of the things that we're building upon and moving forward with this. Cheryl, does this work?
Is it turned on?
Is it plugged in? It is turned on, yeah. Maybe I need to click on the screen and then it'll advance. Sometimes it doesn't. Okay, there we go. Okay, so we have a group of folks here that have been working on this or will work on this moving forward. A lot of these folks around this table have worked with us on kind of moving this work along. I thought I would set the stage a little bit about why this is important for us right now and why I think it could be transformative. If you look at our enrollment, we've talked about this before. We currently serve about 2,000 students, right? We have about 500 FTE. I'm sorry, 571 FTE last year. This year, if you do the math right, Carly, we probably will hit 600. But that's pretty amazing if you look at where we were. We took a dip during COVID, right? But then that bounced back up relatively quickly. Some of this is the result of those programs that Dean Slover was just talking about, not just the nursing students, which add quite a bit to it, but we have seen record enrollments in our pre-nursing classes over the past couple of years as a result of this as well. So we serve a lot of students. We have a lot of FTE I don't really like because that's really butts in seats, right? That's really just hours of instruction. It doesn't really necessarily, this number doesn't tell you anything about what this education is getting, what the students are getting out of that time necessarily, right? Can you advance me, Cheryl? I don't think I'm allowed to drive.
Oh, really?
So we do continue to serve a diverse student body. We've reached minority serving status. We hit in fall 27% of our FTE were from individuals that identify themselves as Hispanic or Latinx. As we talked about before, that 25% is what qualifies you as a minority serving institution. So technically we should be eligible to apply for status as a federal status as a Hispanic serving institution, assuming the Department of Education still recognizes those things moving forward. We do work with Excellencia in Education to dedicate time and efforts and strategy around having intentional practices to serve this growing Latinx population that we're seeing. We're still a mix of transfer and CTE. We still have completions lagging in all of those programs. We're not unique. We are dual credit approximately 40 to 45%. I think a bunch of us had a realization when we were at the recent Guided Pathways Institute that like, wow, that's a lot of our college, right? And we haven't really put a lot of effort into that program. And so we're really looking at that as something we need to focus on. We still have college and career foundational classes. We serve a large number of GED and ESOL students. And we do some non-credit short-term training certificates like our commercial driver's license certificate, right? And that's pretty popular. Okay. I like to think about when we start looking at initiatives, and I hate to use that word because it's really work we're always doing, but what is the problem that we're really trying to solve, right? And if you look at community colleges over the past 60 or 70 years, you know, the growth of community colleges, the birth of community colleges, if you will, and the boom was in the 60s with the GI Bill, people coming back from serving in the military, lack of access. It was really focused all on access. And that's why if you look at most community colleges, unlike ours, they were built in the 60s. They consider that, or this, the language now is that was kind of community college 1.0, right, in that point in time. Then I remember when I was doing a lot of teaching and sort of learning a lot about community colleges, I started teaching in community colleges in 1995. And it really, the language was about completion at that point, right? We felt we were doing a pretty good job with access, and this was in California, where there at that time were 112 community colleges, and now there's 17. But it was really about that access piece. But then we realized students are getting transcripts, but really not completing. So a lot of the focus in this time period here was really around completion, designing with the end in mind, and that is with the goal of completion. And guided pathways, or the guided pathways movement, started right around 2010 or something. As this, we were recognizing the fact that we've got a lot of students, these butts in seats, right? But they're not really getting anything for their time. And then what we're seeing now, and this is really the thing that I'm excited about, and our group is really excited about, is when we look at the next sort of phase or the evolution of community colleges, and that is really what's in it for our students. If we are going to ask our students to spend time, spend money, leave with the debt, are they getting something valuable for that? What is their return on investment? And what are we doing as an institution to ensure that if you all come here and you're spending time and money with us, we know you like to spend time with us, right? But what are you getting for it, right? What's the payoff for that? What's that return on investment? And that's that living wage attainment. And this is the goal right here that we're really looking for, is this transformative change to address generational poverty in our rural communities. And it really is about providing a pathway towards that living wage attainment. And that allows our community to be more vibrant. It allows our residents to break cycles of poverty, abuse, addiction, violence, whatever it may be, right? That's what it's all about. And to me, there's nothing more noble and meaningful than being able to do that. So next slide. So I mentioned guided pathways. To me, when I first did this, it was really logical, right? When I first saw this, I'm like, oh, doesn't everybody do that? Well, I was fortunate enough when I went to college. I was the first in my family to go to college, but I had very supportive family that provided some financial means to help me do that. I went to a university that at the time they told you didn't have a choice. This is what you're taking, right? I don't remember a choice or whatever. So I thought this was logical, what everybody did, right? But then when I met my wife and I was talking to my wife, and she had been to 4 or 5 community colleges, again in California, where when she was growing up, that was free. So you just go to college, right? She had several transcripts, a lot of credits. We had absolutely nothing to show for it, right? She had earned more than enough credits to have an associate's degree, but didn't have one. She was in Eugene, Oregon, cleaning houses, and she realized, wow, I want something more than that, right? She went to Lane Community College, and the first thing said, you got too many credits. You can't come here. Right? And so it's like, oh. So luckily, if any of you know my wife, she's stubborn. And she was very persistent with them. She appealed, they let her come in, and she ended up becoming a nurse, right? And that was transformative in her career. But it's this random walk that students do, right? Because we don't guide them through a lot of this. And they end up with what we think is go explore, go find yourself and whatever. Well, when the cost of an education, you can get a 4-year education in 1990 for $10,000, right? You can't do that anymore, right? So these random walks now really saddle people with debt that don't allow them, and many of them can't get out of debt, right? So the question is, how can we redesign these the experience from the student's point of view. So it is a better and a more rich experience. And they don't have this random walk through the curriculum. They don't leave with a transcript and a lot of debt. They leave with a credential or something that allows them to have some upward mobility. So it's really about a foundation of equity, but clarifying the path for students, doing everything you can to help students get on the path, stay on the path, but most importantly, as they're going through this journey, make sure that they're learning. And by that, I mean, they're learning something, whether it's a trade or a skill or learning that's going to take them to that next step that actually is meaningful. So Tillamook Bay Community College participated in the Oregon Guided Pathways Project. This was put on by OCCA and in particular the Oregon Student Success Center. 15 of the 17, I think that's all, 15 of the 17 Oregon community colleges have participated in this Guided Pathways Project. TBCC did this in 2019, 2020. You go back for a second. Sure. Oh, 2019, 2020. And the results of, I think, some of this work that came out of our initial engagement with the Oregon Guided Pathways at TBCC, we have learning communities that our students we organize our majors and courses around these learning communities, trying to create this sense of community for our students. We develop program maps for full-time, part-time students. We have credentials that are stacked, like Dean Slover was mentioning there. We looked at some of our developmental education and have redesigned that. We realize we're in need of a redesign again in some of this work. But I think one of the important things that came out of this was some of this early work led to the development of the Title III grant proposal that we're in the 4th year of 5 years on right now. And that has really had some transformative impact on us in terms of how we onboard and invite students, kinds of curriculum that we have through Title III has helped with curriculum development, has really helped the foundation with advancement and provided some opportunity for professional development for our faculty and staff. But yet we still have a lot of work to do for this. Next slide, please. So that's where the Rural Guided Pathways comes in. And I highlighted the thing that really I only want you to focus on for this, and it is about pathways to economic prosperity, right? The goals really are to have better student experience, but what we're doing is we're looking at what's the ultimate end goal. So that's engaging our stakeholders and looking at it from this cross-sector approach to really implement these pathways that will lead to a greater well-being, sense of well-being for our students. Next slide, please. These are all of the colleges that are participating in the Rural Guided Pathways Project. There are 28. There are 15 from the first cohort that went through, 13 additional colleges, and we're one of the additional colleges that came in. And there are 4 in Oregon, also funded by the Ford family that funds scholarships for our students, really about rural and addressing rural needs. So Tillamook Bay is one of them in Oregon. Columbia Gorge is another one in Oregon. We both came in this year. Lynn Benton and Southwestern Oregon are legacy colleges, if you will. They participated in the original one, but it spans. Next slide. I gonna get my geography lesson right this time, Peter. Last time I said it spans from Vermont to California, but Peter told me that's not Vermont. That's New Hampshire. But I said I'm a biologist, not a geographer. So next slide. As part of this project, all of those colleges bring a team of 6 to 8 people each time, and we tackle different problems during that time together. We recognize that we're all small and rural, but small, what does that really mean? I mean, there are colleges that are saying that they're small that are, what was it, 3,000 FTE, something like that, right? So quite a bit bigger than us, right? We are, I think this, if not the smallest, we might be the second smallest there. But anyhow, we all get together and tackle these problems together with our team. And it's guided in the sense that we have support from industry professionals to be able to help us through that. We did attend the first institute, and I think we all came back a little bit energized about the work ahead of us and thinking about building the systems that will allow us to move some of this work forward. But you see, this is going to go through October of 2027 as we work our way through this. Next slide, please. And as I mentioned before, it's about integrated pathways. It's about leading to jobs or transfer towards jobs with a living wage. We are going to look at all of our program completion data. We are going to look at data from our geographic area, both Tillamook County and then the expanded area, which are the 3 counties that surround us, Washington County, Lincoln County to the south, and Clatsop County to the north. We're going to ask questions about what are the living wage jobs in that area, these areas. What are the programs that we offer, right? And are we offering the right programs from the standpoint of where the jobs are that would lead to mobility, right? Not lead to debt. Okay. Next slide. And we can skip this one. So if you think about that, here are those 4 pillars, right? Clarifying the path, get on the path, stay on the path, ensure learning. But this is the student life cycle, right? We have to remember that students, it is a journey for them. They don't see these things in discrete stages, right? It is a continuum. Their educational experience is a continuum. And ultimately, they want to have a good job. But we're really looking at connection. How do we engage students around what opportunities there are that are out there? How do we get them enrolled here in those programs that have that lead to that upward mobility? What are the supports that we give them that allow them to complete those programs? And ultimately, how do we hook them up for success in employment or transfer, even though you might not be going to the right school? Saying, that's my Oregon State crowd here. All right. Okay. And again, you can see that what I think is kind of interesting in this, if you look at those sort of 4 pillars and the things that we're focusing on, it really creates a web of support, if you will, for these students around this particular journey. And I think that if we can get some of these things right and programs in place, I really think that we will address some of these generational issues that we have here, because we will get students transferring to good institutions, even like Oregon State, that lead to occupations that are very, very lucrative. Next slide, please. So our goal ultimately is better retention, better completion, better alignment of our programs with the occupations that are out there for our students. We want to have stronger systems. Transparency is an outcome. In particular, we want to build our dual credit programs. We want to look at our GED and ESOL programs. We want to look at non-traditional students, whether that's the adult student, whether that's a student that comes from a marginalized community. We cannot address the workforce needs and the issues of poverty in our county if we don't acknowledge every potential talent pool that's out there. Right? And we want transfer pathways for our students with minimal credit and time loss. We're going to work on creating articulation agreements with some of our partner institutions. We're going to work with the local industry and businesses to create these connections with our students, more internship opportunities that do lead to occupations with those companies. And then most importantly, I think, and this is something, again, I've been very proud of about this institution, is working to create that warm and welcome and inclusive college environment. So our students want to be here, they want to learn, and they trust us to guide them in those areas that are going to lead to better outcomes for them. Next slide. So opportunities, things we're looking at that we'll be engaged in over the next couple of years in particular. We're doing a curriculum audit and articulation audit. So what are the programs that we have? What are the transfer opportunities that we have? We're going to begin to address dual credit with intention about the courses that we put in the high schools and the pathways that they lead to here. We're going to focus on career, first year experiences, professional development for faculty and staff, look at our schedule for student-centered scheduling and on-ramps, certainly from all of those avenues, whether it's non-credit, the high school, or non-traditional means to really address some of these concerns. Next slide. I guess I mentioned dual credit. The areas where we've done some initial work in what are those areas that we should be focusing on, at least locally, for some good, high-paying careers. Welding fabrication, industrial trades, welding fabrication, our apprenticeship programs in millwright and electrical. We do have some growth opportunities in construction and certainly in advanced manufacturing. Both of those are areas where we have a little bit to offer, but not a lot to offer the community. You just heard about the healthcare pathways. Certainly those lead to high-paying careers, but also there's a need for business, better business training, opportunities for students that come in through our business programs to be able to fill some need in the area. Another one that stood out that is an employment opportunity in the county for living wage is education, and looking at grow your own programs to keep people in the county, to serve our county, because those are living wage jobs. And of course, just general transfer programs that you two are going to.
Go Ducks.
Go Ducks. You can only say that for a little bit longer than they'll yell at you.
4 more months.
Yeah, 4 more months. Next slide, please. So that's really when I mentioned, when you hear us talk about guided pathways, it's not new work. It's not additional work. It's not something that sits out here. It is our mission to be able to do these things and to address these things right. It is our strategic plan to be able to move some of this forward. So our goal is to begin to align this work and really focus with intention on some of these things to begin to make a difference for the college and the community. So thank you for the opportunity to speak about that. And if you have any questions, happy to address them.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Do we have any questions? No?
It's fascinating.
It is fascinating and great work. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. We'll let you get back to your chair because the next couple items are yours also. Item E is board policy 3720, computer and network use, our first read.
I believe you have that in your packet as the first reading. It's the author of it is running the show up there. If Cheryl, if you want to comment on it at all, but it's basically, as you know, we have adopted the OCCA board policies and procedure library, and we're working our way through those. And Cheryl, we put together our based upon our current computer network use policy and the language in OCCA library, BP 3720. Anything you want to say in particular about that, Cheryl?
It's pretty simple and straightforward. The meat of it is in the AR that accompanies it for the internal use.
The AR is making its way through, it might have even gone to College Council this past week. I can't really remember.
It did.
It did, yeah. So it has made its way through College Council and contains the operational language of how we carry this out. But this is basically just saying that we will implement procedures in regard to this topic.
You had one for quite a while. It was just aligning it basically with the OCCA's template that we've decided to go to. And the AR is a little more in depth because they had information in there that we didn't. So we just incorporated what we already had, what was there. So this probably looks very familiar.
It's first reading, yeah. So.
Yeah.
We have any questions for Cheryl? All right, thank you. Okay, item F is the budget committee meeting update.
Oh, well, this is easy. I didn't, when I put this in here, we had our budget meeting last week. Wasn't sure what the outcome would be when I put this in here, so I didn't know what information we would have to follow up on, but I'll just provide the update that on April 30th, the budget committee did review our proposed budget for 2025, 2026. They did approve that budget, and so we will be bringing you all the approved budget for review and hopeful adoption at the June board meeting.
Wonderful. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And the Center for Industrial Technologies construction contract approval.
Thank you. So as you know, we've been working towards ultimately getting into under construction for our remodel across the street in the Center for Industrial Technology. We did receive bids and reviewed bids yesterday. We received 7 bids for the project. 5 of those 7 bids were within 10% of each other, so we feel that they probably do represent fairly accurate bids. The low bid, and this is a hard bid contract. The low bid was with ATK Construction. They are a construction company out of Hubbard. And the low bid was $1.68 million. That's a little bit higher. We were anticipating, or I guess not anticipating, we were hoping that that was going to be a few $100,000 less. But because the bids did come in pretty close to each other, we feel that that's probably what it's going to cost us to do the work. There's a good bit of site improvement that's in that bid that the county and city is requiring. There's a significant amount of that's in mechanical and electrical upgrades. But the facility itself is a pretty open lab concept facility. But that's what we've received for that. So if you are inclined, I mean, we are looking to move forward and enter into negotiations with ATK, so we can get a sense that of the reality of their bid and make sure that we're also comfortable that that feels like a good bid before we would enter into contract with them.
Thank you. Discussion?
Did somebody move?
No.
No, okay. I move that we enter into negotiations, that we ask Paul and team to move into negotiations with ATK Construction on the CIT bill.
Thank you. Now, do we have discussion? Questions?
Give me a second.
Okay. Do we have a second?
I second that.
Thank you. All right. Now I'll ask for discussion and questions.
Was there a resolution to the groundwater issue?
Yes, we over here with the septic. Yeah. Is that what we're talking about, the septic tank over here? Yeah, Jason, you want to address the septic? We had it pumped, I know.
Yeah, so after identifying some oil in the septic tank from, we think, the previous owner, we had a company come in that specialized in that task, they removed, cleaned, and we feel very confident they removed all the oil from the system. So we're pretty confident as we can be that it's resolved.
Wasn't a DEQ violation or anything?
It was not.
No.
So the company Clean Harbors out of Portland specializes with DEQ. They did not see it. They indicated that it shouldn't be a DEQ problem.
Great. That's awesome. So this agenda says contract approval, but it doesn't sound like it's a contract.
Oh, sorry. No, it's a approval. You're right. No contract yet. It's to enter into negotiations. Yeah, we would bring back once we feel we have a good contract with them, we would bring that back.
Any other comments?
Betsy or Senator Weber? Questions, comments?
No, I'm satisfied that we should start to negotiate.
Okay, I figured it, I think.
We can hear you.
Sorry, I had some technical issues.
That's okay. Did you have any questions or comments, Betsy?
Not on this. No, I don't.
Okay. Well, if there's nothing else, we have a motion and a second. So I'll call for the vote. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? All right, motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you. We will report back the fruits of our labor.
Terrific. Okay, we'll move on to item 5, information only items, and starting with A, which is mission fulfillment, equity and inclusion with Director McGuire.
Yeah.
So this is, don't be sad, this is the last of our mission fulfillment presentations for the year. Oh, Michael's sad. I'd be sad to see our diagram with me hand signals now. Favorite diagram. So as some of you know, but not everyone knows, so every month, what we've been looking at is each of our mission fulfillment metrics, right? And we've been looking at the metric not just to have a discussion about that particular mission fulfillment metric, but to talk about the metric and specifically to talk about the work that happens at the college to drive that metric, right? Set within the context of our institutional effectiveness model. The model with which we are all getting tattooed later. Paul is the first. I've seen the place on his shoulder where we're gonna put that, right? It's gonna be a part of this retirement ceremony. Yes, so so we come to next slide. So this is our diminutive placemat. We used to have a huge placemat, right? We had 28 metrics. Now we have 12 or 13 or 11 or whatever it is. And so we've worked our way through each of the metrics. And we're to our 5th priority area, which is equity and inclusion. And so I've spent the year scrambling to get, or digging to get to this point. Some might say dreading this conversation, researching, working to come up with a metric for equity and inclusion. You'll notice there's a big blank spot here. And so that's the conversation that I want to have with you all today is how do we measure equity and inclusion? And you'll notice that for each of our other areas, for the most part, we have a quantitative metric. To measure or to indicate progress in these areas. But as you all know, equity is complicated, right? It's complicated. And we're doing a lot of work in the area of equity and inclusion. And how do we distill that down? Or is there a way to distill that down and indicate that progress in a quantitative way? Big answer is probably no. So to remind you, our priority area of equity and inclusion, this is our definition of that priority: to intentionally welcome the community into a safe and supportive environment where everyone belongs. We do this by eliminating systems barriers and embedding equity and inclusion into every facet of TBCC. And despite all of the federal pressures around the issues or around equity and inclusion, we're not backing away in any way of our prioritizing an emphasis on equity and inclusion. Next slide. Specifically within equity and inclusion, we set 2 objectives within our strategic plan. The first is to implement the equity lens in both the development and reviews of policies, administrative rules and decisions. And the second is to increase community participation in conversations about how equitable environments enrich us all. So with respect to the equity lens, we've implemented that equity lens and you all have been a part of that, right? So the equity lens is a part of how we make decisions here at the college, certainly about policies and administrative rules. It's available to all staff and faculty as a tool that can be used as a part of decision making. We've trained you all. We are making the equity lens, training about the equity lens available to staff and faculty, and we have
That training is occurring next week. And so we're spreading that tool as a part of the work that we do here at the college. Leadership team has been trained in the equity lens. And so I feel like that tool is a part of how we do our work. And we're building that muscle, learning that muscle. The Equity and Inclusion Committee uses that equity lens whenever questions are raised about, hey, is this maybe the best approach, or we have questions about this, that, or the other. And we've given examples here. We've all had discussions, I think, about how that equity lens has been applied. Next slide. Oh, look, and I thought of those things and I listed them here. Forgot that I had provided them. But the question, and I think I kind of indicated this, the challenge becomes our work is the measurement or of progress is rarely quantitative, right? And the work that we do is really qualitative. And so there's no way I could go through, and Paul and I have had this conversation a few times. I certainly could go through and count the number of policies and administrative rules that we've reviewed with the equity lens, right? And so I could tell you that every year we're going to review 5 or 10 rules, and that could be our metric, right? That we review at least 6 administrative rules, and we can make that the metric. And that would be the weakest metric that anybody could have. You know, that would be a quantitative metric of equity, but it would be really weak. And so we want to avoid that, right? So that isn't the way that I think we're leaning. Next slide. So what I wanted to talk a little, take an opportunity to talk a little bit about. I know we've been here a while, and so I'll just touch on a few things. Is to give a little hint as to the way that we think about the ways that we do talk about and employ equity in the work that we're doing already, and the way that we do that is more in qualitative kind of conversations, right? And so I wanted to share a little data with you because I have you, and that's what I do, right? And so I wanted to share a little data with you. And so this slide illustrates the percentage of males in various populations across the county. And so we first start with data from the American Community Service survey. That's the census, right? And so it's the percentage of males aged 5 to 14 years. So these are elementary school students. And the percentage of males are about 54%, so a little over half of elementary school students here in the county are male. And when we get to 15 to 17-year-olds, we're still about half, slightly less than half. 25 to 29-year-olds, slightly less than half. And so we're still about half. Okay, where am I going with this? But when we look at the percentage of males enrolled in dual credit, it's 41%. Right, so male students are under enrolled into our dual credit courses. Another way to say that, right? Is there is there another way to say that? Yeah. I don't want to say female students are over enrolled, right? Females are enrolling in dual credit, right? But males aren't enrolling in dual credit courses. And I think it'd be great to have Eileen and the success coaches come at some point to really talk about why that is, right? I met with them yesterday and we had some really great conversations about how students enroll in dual credit, about what that process is like, how students get identified, what the systemic barriers might be for some students to get identified and others not be identified, and how bias may come into the process. That's a whole other conversation we don't have time for tonight. But anyway, so males are under enrolled in dual credit, and then they're under enrolled in dual credit, and then they're less likely to be coming here to TBCC, right? So the TBCC new cohort, what we mean by that is, and that's language that you as the board, you hear that a lot, right? We talk about the new students
in their first year here at the college, only about 40% of those new students are male, 60% are female. Very small percent identify as non-binary. We don't pull out that percentage because it is so small, right? And it's a small group, and so we don't identify them, right? But yeah, 40% are male. And then if we look at all degree-seeking students at the college, if for any one year, usually about 400 students, of that 400 students, this is 23-24, 38% were male. Now, this finding that men are under-enrolling in college is a national problem, right? This is not a TBCC. It is a TBCC problem, but it is not unique to TBCC. It's a national problem. This is an equity issue, right? I don't know how to quantify this and turn it into a metric in our mission fulfillment as a mission fulfillment metric. But it's one of the ways that we're thinking about, we're keeping equity in mind in this conversation that we're having. If you have questions, just jump in, but I'm probably going to keep moving. Yeah. Another similar way that we're keeping equity in mind is we're thinking about the percentage of Hispanic Latinx students who we're serving and not serving, right? And so one way that sometimes the conversation can minimize the percentage of Hispanic Latinx folks is to say, well, in Tillamook County, only about 11% of the folks in Tillamook County are Hispanic Latinx. And that is true, right? But that's everybody in Tillamook County, birth to death, birth to seniors, right? But that's not who comes to TBCC, right? When we look at it by age, we know in elementary school, about 23% of elementary school students are Hispanic Latinx. In high school, it's about 23%, 18 to 24-year-olds, about 22%. Enrolled in dual credit, in our dual credit courses, we're getting about 25%. So that's pretty good, right? So that's proportional. That seems pretty proportional. If in fact, about 23% of high schoolers are Hispanic Latinx, and in our dual credit courses, we've got about 25% Hispanic Latinx. That looks like we're doing pretty good. And so the conversation we had yesterday, Eileen and I had yesterday with success coaches was, so that's good. That's an average over the high schools, but there's a real difference among the different high schools, right? With some high schools having better representation and some who will be nameless, but our coaches know who they are, having less representation. Let's say it that way. But then we see, and Paul touched on this, in our new to TBCC cohort, this is again last year's figures, 29% of the new students coming to the college were Hispanic Latinx, and our entire degree-seeking population, 28% Hispanic Latinx. And then one of the objectives that we have within our strategic plan sets the aspirational goal that our employee population will be more representative of the population of Tillamook County as a whole, right? That we'll have more diverse employee population racially and ethnically. And so to add that in, 7% of our TBCC employees are Hispanic Latinx compared to that larger population, or just throwing that in there.
So, Erin, I just want to mention that I'm sure you're aware of this, but you're stuck with the 11% population count because that's from the census.
Yes.
But it was counted in 2020 when President Trump had indicated that people who answered the census would be turned into INS. And so we checked around with school districts and with local groups to say, how many do you think this is? Because nobody thought it was 11%. And people who are working with incoming students, et cetera, all said 20 to 30.
Yeah. Well, I agree that the census response rates have real problems. These data aren't the biennial or decennial census. They aren't from 2020. They're from the American Community Survey, which happens every year, right? Which is how that occurs is a representative sample of folks from across the county are contacted by phone, and which has its issues as well, right? Where census takers reach out and sample, right? So that's problematic as well. But it's an average of those 5 years. So it's different, and it occurred during the Biden administration for whatever that's worth, but I agree. Yeah. Felt compelled to nerd out on that, but yeah. So what do I want to say about this? So I guess my point is, we're always looking, we're always looking. We are certainly keeping equity in mind, right? And always looking at our data from an equity perspective, not just race and ethnicity, not just from a gender perspective. These are the kind of questions that we're always asking. But can we distill all that down into a single metric that really indicates the progress or the impact that we're having? I haven't been able to figure it out. I did set ChatGPT on a research project to try to go out to all of the colleges across the US and to find how everybody else was measuring it. I didn't find anybody who's doing better than us. And if chat can't find it, I don't know that it's out there. Really, I mean, I really tried to find a better approach. Next slide. One thing I did want to point out, and I won't go too deep in this, but we do always, we do disaggregate all of our student success data, though, by a whole series of demographic data, right? We're always looking at who are we retaining, right? From fall to winter term. Who are we, who's persisting from fall to fall? Who's graduating, who isn't graduating? We're always looking at those outcome data. But when I say disaggregating, right, splitting that out to see who are the subpopulations who are succeeding and who isn't, right? And so this graph comes from an analysis that we did, I say we, like a little mouse in my pocket, that I did a couple of years ago, right? We don't do these analyses every year because, you know, our sample size is so small, right? Because I've said to you so many times, every year, our new student cohort's about 100 students. And so we can't disaggregate that 100 students every year. So we look at it every 3 years or every 5 years when we've got a big enough chunk of students. We split that, you know, we look at that, I think this was about 500 students, so a 5-year sample. And we looked at the percentage of students who persisted to winter term, who passed Gateway English in their first year, who were retained to the following fall, who passed Gateway Math. You know, these really key Gateway momentum metrics, or Gateway metrics, momentum metrics, these really key indicators of success, right? And we looked at, like, what are the characteristics of those students that give us a sense of, like, who's succeeding and who isn't. And I shared this data with you all then. Some of you were here for that conversation, some of you weren't, but the most powerful predictor of success was family income. And that's what this chart tries to, and there's a lot going on here, but that's what this chart tries to demonstrate, that students from families with lower incomes, and here income is measured by expected family contribution from the FAFSA, right? So students whose expected family contribution on the FAFSA was $0, right? Their families had incomes low enough that the family was expected to contribute nothing versus everybody else. So families with an expected family contribution of $1 or more, right? You see the difference in the percentage of students who succeeded, right? Who were retained, who earned, who were retained, who passed, right? That's that difference. And so you just see, so look at the slope of that line indicates greater success, right? So it's family income was the most powerful predictor, beat everything else, which didn't surprise Rhoda, right? I mean, didn't surprise most of us because we know that that's a real powerful
because we know we're doing so much to income, to impact income for our families, to provide those supports. So I say all of that just to say that, too simple to say we're doing equity every day, but it's a part of what we're looking at every day. Yeah. And so to simplify it into a metric, like, I don't know how we do that. Yeah. Questions about any of that? All right, thanks. I won't be on every agenda next year.
I guess I have a question.
Yes.
Do we have to have a metric? Can we decide we're not going to have a metric?
We can. You know, I think in that area, we can. I think the only challenge is that because it's a priority within our plan, as it should be, when I think about it from an accreditation perspective and from a mission fulfillment perspective, you know, we prepare a mission fulfillment report every year, right? I come to you all and I say, hey, so here's how we did in each of these areas. I think what I'll prepare in the area of equity and inclusion is going to be a much more, you know, longer narrative kind of summary. Here's all the work that we did. Here's some of the impacts that we can see. Here's maybe where we dropped the ball, you know, and we're going to be honest about ourselves in terms of an assessment, but I think it'll be more of a narrative response rather than we've got to go qualitative rather than quantitative.
Erin, hello? Yes.
Yes.
I am so, what's the word? Enamored with your ability to put all and figures together to make them understandable to us. It's just amazing what you do. I just wonder, are you getting any blowback from the present federal government? Because they are definitely not excited about DEI.
Well, you know, my daily calls with Trump have been a little awkward.
What's that? What is it? Tell me again.
I made a joke, but no.
Not yet. I hope not. Okay. Thank you for all you do. Wow.
Thank you, Betsy. Appreciate it.
I guess what I would say is, as a board member, I appreciate all that everyone in this room does in the form of being welcoming to all, in the form of helping everyone we can. And I don't care if we have a metric about that. I feel good about what we're doing. And I think that's what we need to continue working on, doing the best we can to encourage as many people as possible, no matter who they are, to get education. So I'm happy with what we're doing. I don't think we need a metric, but I appreciate you thinking about it. But don't lose any sleep over it. What I would say.
Thank you. And thanks, Erin. Thanks for the presentation. It's very thoughtful and interesting. And I was thinking about how it ties in with the item that we just discussed about the Center for Industrial Technology and how that's very likely to bring in more boys. And, you know, I agree with Mary that this school is doing really good work. And I think we'll continue to do good work, but I'm grateful to you for calling it out, like, here's the gaps.
Yeah. Well, I think if we don't look, we don't know. Right. And so I think that's the reason to have metrics, or whether they're qualitative or quantitative, we've got to look and monitor. So otherwise we may be missing, right, really important gaps that we wouldn't know if unless we were digging in and doing the kind of disaggregation that we're that we do regularly. I think that's really essential.
Thank you. Okay, Let's move on to the ASTBCC report. Thank you for being with us. Thank you for staying with us for hours tonight.
It was stretch.
Yeah.
7th inning, stand up.
Yeah.
My back.
Yeah, my neighbor, oh my God. Okay, so first and foremost, we have updated our election process for ASBCC, and we will be electing president and vice president this spring. The applications have been sent out, and that is part of our new constitution that.
So we did meet up with the leadership team and we did get our constitution approved after 3 years of working on it, 3 or 4 years. I know my sister used to go to TBCC and she was an ASTBCC officer and they still hadn't done their constitution, so I kind of put it in.
We got it finalized.
But yeah, and then we also have some events coming up that we want to talk about.
Tomorrow we have our Mother's Day paint night. We have advertised to the whole community, and so far we have, I think, 11 RSVPs, and we'll have mothers paint for free, and then the rest, everyone else by donation, so hopefully that turns out well tomorrow.
Yep, and then a week from today, we're gonna have our game night in the same room. It starts at 5 and it goes to about 8. We decided to extend our hours because everybody from our last game night was like, oh man, we have to go home. So we kind of extended to stay a little bit.
Yeah. And we'll have some more fun, new exciting things this time.
Yeah.
We improved from our last one was in April, I think, or March.
Wow.
Yeah. And lastly, on our agenda, our Vice President Aurelia was awarded the 4th Family.
That is thrilling.
Yeah.
So it's like, I'm still like on cloud 9.
You should.
I'm gonna stay there for a couple weeks.
Yeah. Will you tell us a little bit about it? Tell us the story.
Yeah, so, well, I guess I don't know where to start. So the day of my interview, I had it and they asked me some pretty good questions. And I felt kind of stumped because I was trying to answer, like, be myself, be honest. And so I was kind of nervous. And after the interview, I felt so down with myself. And I was like, oh, because somebody told me, one of my mentors is like, you only focus on what you did bad, not what you did good. So I kind of had that in mind. And then today during art class, I was like, there was this feeling in my stomach. I was like, I need to do something. And so I go on my phone with the teacher's permission, professor's permission. And it says, congratulations. That's the first thing I read. And like my heart just like boom. And so I quickly go to the bathroom. I'm in a hurry. I'm like, Mom. And I'm like, Mom, we did it. And she's like, what? And she's like, I got it. And I just start crying. And then, we were all like celebrating and stuff like that. And I still haven't told my dad. So it'll be exciting when I go back home today. And it's fun to see all their hard work paid off because my mom never got to go to middle school or graduate middle school. Due to lack of money, and my dad also, his dad pulled him away from high school. He never got to graduate. So it's nice to see how far, all the opportunities they gave me and see how far he got. So yeah.
That is fabulous. Well done. So what is your plan?
Well, next course of action is to go to OSU. Sorry. Sorry. But my overall goal is to come back and help the community. I want to be a family physician and come back to work in Tillamook to help other families. Like, Tillamook has helped my family throughout the years, provide good experiences for, diverse families and, all kinds of families. Yeah.
That's great.
I'll be your roommate.
Right?
That's great. Oh, thank you for telling us that story. And so tell us your plan.
My plan?
Yeah.
I'm also transferring to OSU in September. And I am transferring to study natural resources and fish and wildlife conservation.
Great.
And I'm thinking about minoring in botany also. So I'm kind of getting all the outdoor stuff, and I don't know exactly what I want to do yet, but our trip to Salem over in March really inspired me to want to get involved with that kind of thing. So maybe I'll do that sort of thing too, get involved in like some kind of board or something like that. But I do want to work for some kind of conservation effort in the world because that's something that's really important to me.
Good for you.
Yeah.
Good for both of you. Well, thank you so much for being here and for sharing that with us, because for everyone, I can speak for everyone in this room when I say that that's why we all are doing this.
Yeah.
That's why we work here. That's why we serve here. That's why we're visiting here. That's why all of us are doing this, because of you, for your stories, for your future, for your education, for everything. So
Thank you guys
so
for all your
much.
work that you do. It really shows how much you guys care, because you guys are like all here and on Zoom, and yeah, it's just.
Congratulations. So excited for you. Oh, it's
Thank you.
amazing. Both of you.
One day again. Yeah. I'm
That's
gonna go back. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah, but we're gonna head out, so thank you guys so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you for hanging in
Oh,
here.
no.
You go home and celebrate.
Yeah.
I know. Yeah. So he usually gets back from work at 5, so hopefully
Yeah.
he's still awake. Wake him up.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, bummer for Jason that he has to follow that.
Yeah.
Good luck. Thank you for everyone that went on our tour. So we had a board tour prior to this meeting, which is great. I think we're gonna try to do that next board meeting as well. If anyone, for board members that would like to join and see progress on the HEB building. Quick rundown on HEB, which I can't believe it's already been a month since we did this last month, but work continues on exterior of the building, siding, roofing. The big goal, the next big hurdle is getting it dried in. I would say we're about 50% there. They've started the exterior siding skin on the south side. Roofing is underway. I would anticipate by next board meeting, we will see some copper roof. So they've done all the infrastructure. There's multiple layers to the roof, which is exciting. There's a ton of work going on inside, mechanical, electrical. HVAC is pretty much wrapped up on the first floor. They moved to the second floor. I would say they're probably 80% there. So a lot of those trades will be finishing up for this piece of the puzzle. Dry the building in and start finishing it. We expect to see the first glass on site the first week of June, which will be a next big visual step for everyone to see. Windows, storefronts, that'll all start happening in June. And there's a ton of infrastructure outside, plaza work, curb, gutters, parking lot prep, electrical to the parking lot has all been underway. So a lot going on. Things are going really well. The weather has been super helpful. And I think they've been taking advantage of that. We've been averaging around 40 to 60 tradespeople on the job every day.
Wow.
Other than Friday, they're mostly working 410s. So there's a lot of activity. CIT, President Gerald talked to that. We are ready to go. So as soon as we negotiate and get direction from the board, we are ready to issue a notice to proceed. Documents are in place, permits in place. So I am hopeful that we can get that thing under construction in June. Great. As a quick rundown, if there's any questions, I'd love to see everyone on tours.
Thank
I love
you.
my tours. Take you out and show you what's going on.
Great.
Yeah,
It's
thank you for the tour.
I'm sorry I couldn't be there today.
We'd love to have, anytime if you want to come by, we'll get anyone out in the building, and then hopefully we can do it each board meeting so you can see progress. It's fun to see the big changes.
That'd be great.
That's my goal. I got back for like an hour before the tour. I was like, oh yeah, it's on.
It's okay.
All right, thank you, Jason. So financial report?
So you were feeling for Jason to go after those? Think about me going after even Jason with all those exciting stuff. So I usually try to tie my financial report to the construction first. So I'm gonna do the same thing again. So far from the big bond that we had through the Tillamook County, we have still about $4.8 million left. Sorry, $5.2 million left. And also for the match that we're receiving, we have billed for almost 5.5 already, but as of the timing for this report, as of the end of March, we have received $4.8 million of it. So if you remember from the budget, if you memorized every line in the budget, I'm kind of foreseeing that we're going to go into the next year with $6 million of it coming to us. And the rest is going to be billed and received in the next fiscal year. So I think we're doing well on staying on the budget for the construction. We also have budgeted about $1.2 million. This is what we were hoping we would have for the CIT building. The initial bids came higher than that, but we already talked about how we're gonna plan for the difference if we end up going ahead with one of those bids and have to come up with the money. So I'll come to that in a few minutes. I'm gonna start with the financial report that is up there. I'm not gonna go into too much of details unless anybody has a question for me. A lot of it is still kind of the same. We are on a good path forward. We started the year with a larger fund balance that we were expecting. Most of it was from salary savings that I don't know, we were in Sherry's world, we were fortunate. In the big scheme of world, we weren't that fortunate. We had some open positions that we couldn't fill, so that's why we have that money. We received 3 payments of the 4 payments from the CCSF funds. We still expect one more, about $1.3 million that we should be receiving. The majority of the property taxes is pretty much here. We don't expect much of it, except for the timber tax revenue that there's going to be, I'm hoping, a fairly large one in May that we will receive. In terms of revenue, the other area that we received more than we budgeted, and I'm kind of going to stick with that than we budgeted. At the time, we weren't budgeting enough of tuition and fees for the 2 nursing cohorts that we have right now. So if quickly do a quick math of those cohorts are 16. So even if I say 30 students, not 32, times their number of credits that they're taking, which usually is a full load that they have, times the tuition and fees. So that's why we have more than what we expected. And the other thing is that here we are trying to be more conservative on the revenue side of things. And on the other hand, on the expenses, we go a little bit more ambitious. Basically, we put all the positions and all the expenses that we are not so sure if there are other resources for it or not on the general fund. But then we very actively seek any grants or any opportunity or even fundraising for some of the activities. So then throughout the year, we charge some of the employees' salaries or some of the expenses on the grants and other funding that we receive. By saying that, I'm going to go to basically the difference of the revenue and expenses as of now. We have about $3.3 million more in revenue. We still have some payrolls, including in June, we're going to have book 2 payrolls because the payroll that happens in July, usually we bring it back because it's more expenses, payroll expenses of June. So we still have several payroll expenses plus other expenses that we have. But if I make a projection based on that, is I think that again, and for this upcoming year, again, if you memorize the budget that I presented, we are thinking about 1.65 of ending fund balance or beginning fund balance for the next year. I think that is doable. The other thing is that, or maybe even we may have a little bit more of savings that can go into some contingency funds for the CIT building or something of that nature that we may need. The other thing is that I want to point out is the transfers that are at the top part for the revenue. But we budgeted about $500,000, but we only received or transferred about $17 million. The reason for it is that usually we have, and this is probably many things would be of more interest for you because we were concerned about us relying on the timber tax for some of our remodels and renovations that we are doing. And as I said before, and now we can say that again with more certainty, I don't think I need to do that transfer, even though that, and that transfer is a big chunk of, I believe it was $430,000 for this current year. I don't think we need to do that transfer because we're doing well on how things look like. And that would be money that stays into the timber tax revenue. I think I covered everything and I was trying to be very careful of the time because we're going over. So, but I'm happy to answer any questions if there are any. Seems like let's see, it's not turned off the camera. So if there are any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Thank you. Do we have any questions for Sherry? Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate it. And I appreciate you talking about things that we talked about in the budget committee and keeping those current. So thank you.
Sure.
Okay, to the president's report.
Great, I'll be brief. You have it in print, so I won't highlight. I do want to mention, just to go straight to the end to mention a few things. Upcoming dates, the college will be closed on May 26th. That's for Memorial Day. A couple of things to draw your attention to that are end of the year fun kind of things. Our end of the year celebration, mostly for students, and student awards, and we'll also do some staff awards, is June 3rd. So that should be fun. I believe that's at 4 p.m. if my memory is correct. We will have a barbecue and potluck on June 6th. For all of our employees. You certainly are welcome for that. We're getting our barbecuing down. We had a grilled cheese potluck the other day, and that was a lot of fun. Doug Olson just happened to be here. I don't know, he just timed it at the right time. He timed that right. So he benefited from me being out there grilling cheese. So I really enjoy doing those things. So that's fun if you want to come by. But the real fun is graduation on Friday the 13th and 5:30, correct?
Correct.
And Abby, just for your information, we had last year, we did it in the one of the facilities barn, but it was transformed. Over at the fairgrounds, we had 60 some students that walked or participated. But we had over 600 people in attendance. And that is when I saw that, for me, that was just like, that's the community thing. So that was really fun for us. And so we're looking forward to a fun time for that this year. Of course, our next board meeting is June 4th. If I could just call out a few, I did want to mention TBCC left, but the group of officers presented us with a business proposal to provide some opportunities for food for students here. And so that was really fun to have them do that. And again, congrats to Aurelie. Both Aurelie and Riley both are just stellar. They accompanied us at legislative days, and I was just impressed by their passion and poise, and it was really great for that. Congrats or kudos to the business office, and congrats for a successful budget preparation season and all of that. I really appreciate all the work your team does, Sherry. It's really important. Lori Lund, our executive assistant, and Kylie, our HR, they supported that process as well with budget prep. So many thanks to you all for that.
And all the budget managers and
all the budget managers, everybody. We had a giving circle luncheon, so kudos to Britta Lawrence and Cy Kennedy in particular for helping put that together. And I really have to say that I really am grateful to work here with such a great group of folks. I say this all the time, but I'm just reminded of it on a daily basis. We had our open house a couple of weeks ago, and the efforts from the entire campus to come help facilitate that was just amazing. great folks there, and of course, all of our TBCC employees make this a great place to work and learn. So I feel very fortunate, and thank you for the opportunity every day. So that is my report.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, board members, any board concerns?
Well, even though it was an extremely lengthy meeting. It wasn't just It was really informative and I really appreciate it. And I was glad I was here in person. So they're especially hard when you're online. I'm sorry, Betsy.
I know, I don't like it. I hate it.
But thank you, Abby, for being here. And
Yes,
and
thanks, Abby.
I agree completely. It was a great meeting
It was
and
very informative.
yeah, very informative. I learned a lot and I'm appreciative. Thank you.
But we do miss Lori. We should say that because
I do
Yes.
too.
Yeah, we do. I bet Kylie does.
Yeah. Take all the
Yeah.
recommendation.
We are in the process of talking about taking over the license. But it's a few months, 7 months away for that to happen.
I'm sorry to run, but I'm late.
Thank you, Mary.
It's very good to see you.
Nice to meet you.
Okay,
I think she just adjourned.
she did,
That was her
yes.
motion to.
Okay, so. We have a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Betsy. Do we have a second? All right, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 You can't adjourn because you lost your quorum. You can't.
Oh. All right, I'm going to call it adjourned. Thank you so much.
Wow, it was amazing. What a great meeting.
On higher education, 9 to 12, I make.
Nice to meet you.
I know, it's